How you doing, folks? You're watching Live with Onrie, and I'm your host, Onrie Compen. Today's guest is somebody who I have been following for quite some time now. I have a lot of admiration and respect for this gentleman. He is the publisher of Big Dog Inc. He's responsible for titles that need no mention for me, but I'll tell them what they are. I'll tell you guys what they are anyway. Critter, Penny for Your Soul. Such great titles from a great publisher, and I'm going to learn more about him right now. Folks, let's welcome Tom Hutchinson. How you doing, sir?
Hey, doing well, man.
Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, of course.
So for those of us who don't know who you are, and shame on you if we don't, would you
Everybody
mind?
knows who I am, man.
Everybody knows who you are. Well, do us a favor. Tell us all who you are, what you do, and all that other stuff.
Yeah, Tom Hutchinson. I am the publisher of Big Dog Inc. Comics. I also write 98% of what we do. Critter, Penny for Your Soul, Legend of Oz, The Wicked West, Ursa Minor, Kaiju Epic, Lights, Camera, Jungle, Antoinette, Scheherazade. Well, Scheherazade, that's one of the percentages that I don't write, but I do kind of oversee the production of it so that we kind of get the story that I want. But Carrie Castor, who's also my editor, is the actual scripter for that book. But yeah, on and on and on. Princesses versus Zombies coming out soon. We're celebrating 10 years of Big Dog Inc. in 2020, as well as specifically 10 years of Critter and 10 years of Penny for Your Soul.
That is fantastic. I got to tell you, man, I've been in the business for about 10 years now, and I've watched you grow. And, just seeing everything that you're doing, your partnership with Aspen. I know the name of the publisher. My brain is just slipping because it's lack of sleep, not because I didn't know who Aspen is. But anyway, the fact that you're making all these moves, the fact that you're managing all the projects, you're writing all your projects, you're getting out there, you're doing the hustle, you're doing everything. So let's peel back the layers. Who is Tom Hutchinson? How did you get into comics? How did you fall into this position? How are you making it work?
That's a lot of questions in one question.
I'm sorry. I bombarded you. There's so much I want to know.
Yeah, it's. I've been into comics basically since I was a kid. I didn't know the first comic I ever bought was Godzilla #16 from the old Marvel Comics Godzilla stuff. And I was at a flea market, walking around. I don't know what the hell I was doing there. I was just with family chilling out. And then there was a guy who had a stack of comics. And on top of it, had it not been there, I probably wouldn't have even given it a second glance. But on top of this stack was Godzilla #16. I didn't know what a comic book was, but I knew what Godzilla was. And so I was immediately drawn to it, grabbed it, picked it up. It's this ridiculous issue. It's just his head roaring, and then there's a bunch of cowboys like lassoed to his teeth swinging around. I was like, what in the world is this thing? So I dropped down my 50 cents or whatever it was and took it home, and that was it, man. It was an instant love affair stemming from my love of Godzilla, but it drew into the comic book realm, and I needed more Godzilla. So I went back the next week, found some more. Eventually that reading the books, you would see advertisements and stuff in them. So, you'd be like, okay, what's the Avengers and what's Ghost Rider and what's this and what's that? And so I went back, I kept going back to these flea markets in the summertime and be like, okay, so let me get this Ghost Rider book. Let me get this. Let me get this. Let me get this. And suddenly I had this little tiny nonsense collection, but it was the beginnings of my essentially lifelong love of the comic book medium as a whole.
For sure, man. That's so cool. So, okay, you got it. So that's your intro to comics. Now, what was that point in your life when you said, all right, I want to work in this field, not just as a writer, but as a publisher as well, because that's a huge undertaking.
Well, those were two different things as well, because initially, like most people, I was running the idea that, hey, I could draw comics and, do this and do that. And that's actually where Critter came from. For a while, I was just designing. I was just drawing like whatever. But I got tired of drawing the X-Men and tired of drawing all that stuff. So I was like, well, let me just draw my own character and see what I can do with it and just get used to drawing her over and over and over. Because if you're going to be an artist in comics, you got to make these characters look the same every time. So I was like, okay, let me see if I can draw Critter and just kind of create some kind of template for it. And that was the back of business class in 1992 in college, where I basically was like, yeah, I'm not going to go to college anymore. I took a year off from high school to college. So going back in and having like homework and stuff again, I was like, no, this is not going to work for me. I can't do that. And my professor was really great. I had a great professor, and I really kind of regret not sticking it out. And I wasn't working about it, trying to get a degree, but just having the class under my belt, like a real full class, would have been great. But he understood. He would come to me all the time. He'd be like, dude, you are really smart and you know what's going on. You're going to be fine. But it took me a long time to figure out the path to be fine, because in between that and now, I ran and managed a comic book shop in the early to mid 90s. So during the boom, I owned my own shop late 90s into 2001, right before 9/11 happened, which I had to close my shop. Then I went and worked for the world's biggest sports card dealer, and we were working with NASCAR and NFL and Major League Baseball, putting sports cards up on their website. So we had that going. And then as I was doing that, that's when I kind of started to think, well, okay, clearly I'm not going to draw a comic, but I had written sort of origin stories and so on for Critter that were just nonsensical. But I thought, okay, maybe I could write a comic and then get somebody else to draw it, because that's how comics works anyway. There's always a writer and then there's an artist. Obviously, some people do both, but that's the exception to the rule. So I started writing while I was still working at the sports card shop. And that was right before all of the big recession that hit, a decade ago, and or I don't even know how long ago it was, 15 years ago, whatever it was. And so I got laid off from that job because people decided they didn't need 3-inch pieces of cardboard anymore. And so I had Critter, and I had been working on Penny for Your Soul at the time. So I was like, okay, well, let's see what I can do with this before I go get a job at Walmart. What can I actually do with what I've done? Is it functional? Is it real? Is it something that I can actually put on paper and have people buy? Like, what in the world is all of this? And so we dove into Diamond, I don't know, about 6 months later or so. And that was with Penny for Your Soul. Critter was the first book I wrote, but Penny for Your Soul was the first published, just because it was moving faster from an art standpoint. And Penny for Your Soul came out in 2010, early 2010. We sold out of our initial print run immediately, like it was gone. We went to a second print. We put out another issue 2 months later. Then Critter came out 2 months later. And basically we were off to the races.
That's very interesting. So you basically, I'd like to think that your experience owning a comic shop was really the real school that you needed in order to get to that point where you had, a second reprint on your first published book through Diamond, no less, that's incredibly challenging. Like,
Sure.
when I started dealing with Diamond about a year after you, but I didn't go into it knowing what to expect. I didn't have that experience of working in a comic shop. So I called up a bunch of retailers. I tried to get them to order the book, and then I came back and the numbers.
You did more than I did.
Well, and that's the thing. I think there's something to be said about that experience that you have. And it's like, okay, we'd all be better off if we were listening when we were in school, when we were younger, rather than messing around or,
100%.
But at the same time, you drawing in the back of your class was the same thing I was doing. And I had teachers too that, had faith in me. And then there were some that didn't and all that kind of stuff. But see, that was like your real education was going out and doing it. It's not doing homework. It's not about the theory. It's about the practicality, the actual going out there and doing.
You got to study theory, but you've got to put that into practical motion. And it doesn't always translate. I mean, literally, if you look at every publisher in comics, they're all doing things similarly, but none of it is 100% the same.
Right, exactly. And the thing is like, I've noticed a lot of guys who have comic shop retail experience who then branch off and start doing their own comics. They have an edge over creators who are just saying, hey, I want to work in comics, but don't have the experience of, even if you worked as a freelancer, it's still not the same thing because when you're doing something that's self-published, you really got to push it. So now I'm curious. You built your brand, your publishing line, and you're surviving. I remember when you and I first started talking on Facebook, you were telling me that you used to be doing about 15 shows a year, and you've now dropped back significantly. So what have you done? How have you navigated over the course of 2010 to where we are now, in order to kind of put yourself in a position where you can really focus on the projects that really matter to you, that you can really do the things that you want to do without having to think to yourself, man, I'm going to end up in Walmart tomorrow if I mess up,
Yeah, well, again, that's a lot of.
Sorry,
that's a lot of.
I've really been looking forward to talking to you.
We'll give people more or less the timeline, because all of this is relative. So we started in 2010. We put out Penny for Your Soul and Critter. Penny for Your Soul we had set up to be an every 2-month book, because I didn't want it to be late. And I, since I was new into I understood the system because I worked in retail for so long, but I also knew that I was new to making things. So I wanted to make sure that we weren't going to get behind. So we were putting the books out every 2 months. And then Critter was just a one shot. And then her miniseries actually came out the following year. So in 2011, we finished up Penny for Your Soul Volume 1. We dropped the Critter miniseries. And at the end of 2011, we dropped our third book, which was The Legend of Oz, The Wicked West. So every year that we've been in existence, outside of the Aspen years, we've dropped a new title as well. So it was slow growth. There was absolutely zero marketing as far as Bleeding Cool or Newsarama or CBG. Like, they didn't give two craps about us and would barely mention us even if we asked them to. And so everything that we did was grassroots. It was going to shows because we knew there was people there, and we could take the book and be like, hey, look at this book, put it in their hands. We can talk about it, because we don't get to do Super Bowl ads and that kind of stuff. So our advertising is conventions. It's advertising ourselves. It's, hey, look, we've got this character Critter, and you've got this anime girl on your shirt, so you'll probably like it. And then just trying to connect with the fan base. And then once they do, then basically it's just crossing your fingers. Oh God, are they going to like what they're reading? And will they then talk about it? Which they did. So we got a huge grassroots fan base that would talk about it on their blogs or their podcasts or whatever it is that they were doing. We could never get the upper level to pay attention to us, but everybody that was buying the books and reading them were like, this stuff's really good. And they were talking about it. And this was the early days of Facebook and all of this stuff. So what we have right now on Facebook is like 100 times better than we had 10 years ago. So you guys have massive, massive advantages in starting things now that we don't have. But what I have an advantage of over you is I have 10 years of doing this and 10 years of people understanding the product, the brand, whether it's Critter, Ursa, Oz, whatever. And so that is how I was able to grow what we're doing into just what we're doing. After 4 years, we went to Aspen. We realized in the retail market that we'd kind of hit a ceiling that we couldn't get above without doing some drastic changes or getting somebody. Our thought process was, let's get somebody to put their name behind us. And we had known the Aspen guys, Frank and Vince and Peter. We'd known them for many, many years. And we just went over to them and was like, look, dude, this is where we are retail wise. We're trying to figure out a way to grow the brand, but it's really hard to do. What would you think if we comboed up and you guys published our books? And it took a little while, and we talked about it different ways. And they were like, yeah, this makes sense, because none of our products overlapped theirs. So there was no duplication in genre or anything. We had similar fan bases because the Michael Turner folks liked his art folks like our art, and so on. So there was a little bit of that Venn diagram overlap. And we were there for 3 years. Really, the only reason we are not there anymore is because they sold part of the company to a movie studio so they could focus on Michael Turner properties. And I was like, well, I mean, I get that. I'm not going to like go crying into the wind like, oh, no. I mean, it was an amicable, separation, and they were great with me. They were there in a time that I needed them tremendously, both from a business standpoint and personal, because I had been going through a divorce at that point. And it was great. But what I had to do then after 7 years of being in the business, was I had to figure it out. Okay, so if I'm coming back out as Big Dog Inc., am I just going to go right back into Diamond and just drop my books and be like, okay, here we go again? Or maybe I take advantage of some of these other things to kind of, create that slow grassroots growth. And that's when we dove into Kickstarter. And that was 4-ish years ago for Penny for Your Soul. Volume 4, number 1 was on Kickstarter. And it was a huge success. And again, we were off to the races.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. What I hear is a story of somebody who understands that in order to survive, you need to adapt.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
And the thing I'll tell you, man, I launched a show, my shopping show, which was no doubt inspired by all the things that I'm seeing you doing through, your online comic unity convention.
Mm-hmm.
Just seeing your presence, just hearing you on Phil Locklear. The moment you said on the show, keep hitting that launch button, keep going out there, it just clicked to me that, this is a matter of just getting out there and going back and modifying what we did so well at the convention scene, which was getting up in front of people, handing them our books, and, moving that. And because that's not here right now, I mean, we both know it'll come back at some point,
sure,
but in a different way. And it's important to learn to adapt. And honestly, just watching how you're proof that it can work. That's why I take you so seriously. And the questions that, just hearing your stories, I take that very seriously because it matters that much. Now, you're managing 3 different Kickstarters at the very moment. Am I right?
No, right now we're just down to 1. We had 3 running, but 1 was at the tail end with Plan 59. I was a stretch goal. I was helping them along with their Kickstarter, Plan 59 from Outer Space. I've known Michael Dolce forever. He was one of the guys that helped me get into comics. So when he had this project, I was like, dude, yeah, let's do this. Let me throw a couple of ideas your way and just make me a stretch goal. So I was a stretch goal that if we reached, I don't know, whatever it was, 5,059, it unlocked a bonus backup story. So I'm writing a story for the first time for somebody else, which will be fun. The other Kickstarter was a short-term project. Penny for Your Soul and Showgirls combo book, a pinup book. Showgirls is celebrating 25 years. Big Dog is celebrating 10 years. So we decided to do a little combo pinup book. We did a 69-hour campaign, which was super successful and really fun. And that'll actually be coming out in the next few weeks. And
how much plan? I mean, 69 hours. This is the first time I've heard of this. So how much?
We did one last year too. We did a 69-hour last year as well.
Okay,
and it was really successful as well.
Oh, I can imagine, because you're just throwing everything you got into it in the 69 hours. You got everything crammed into this small block of time. Now, here's a question for you. How much planning went into that 69 hours? Is it more than, say, the extended Kickstarter, or is it the same? Are you just the kind of guy who's like, I'm going to just jump into this head first, and whatever happens, I don't care. I'll get up, I'll dust myself off and try again?
Yeah, that is basically what it is. I have been experimenting with things all year, but all of those things have been planned out. I was planning the Showgirls thing since January, because once I found out that it was their 25th anniversary, and I didn't see anything coming out, there was no new Steelbook, Blu-rays, there was nothing. I was like, that's kind of weird. I mean, this is such a movie with such a cult following that I would think that there would be something. Now, there was a documentary that came out called You Don't Know Me, but there was literally nothing else. It's the entire Hollywood situation was we don't want to talk about that anymore. So, but the funny part is, as soon as I announced it, people lost their minds. They were like, "Oh my God, this is going to be so cool!" And and so we just threw it out there. I wasn't sure how we were going to do the Kickstarter itself, but when we got down closer to time and I realized I was going to be part of Plan 59 and Comic Unity at the same time, I was like, okay, this is only going to make sense if we just do a quick in and out thing. We'll make some exclusive covers that are only part of the campaign, so that if you miss the campaign, that's it. There'll be the regular edition, but all the exclusive stuff gone. And so that sort of helps drive people into the Kickstarter quickly, because you're like, oh, I have to get it or I can't ever get it. And there's a lot of Kickstarters that do that now. If you don't get it, that's it. You can get whatever comes out later, whatever standard editions come out. but there are exclusive Kickstarter versions that you can only get on the campaign. So I was just like, yeah, let's just do this, because we did a 69-hour campaign for Princesses versus Zombies last year for the 0 issue, the little preview thing, because I wanted to do basically a proof of concept thing. I was like, do people give a damn about this? And so we threw it out over like Halloween, and it was a huge success. And it was such a big success that it actually pushed Princesses versus Zombies into the schedule this year. Like, I wasn't going to do it this year, but it was so successful and people were clamoring for more. I was like, well, I have to do this. So we did that. Princesses versus Zombies ended up being our biggest campaign ever out of all the stuff we've done, and we're just about to ship it out to backers. So, it's a huge combination of proper marketing, proper timing to some degree, and to be perfectly honest, it's proper content. Because the reality is, folks, and this is the sad reality. The reality is, and this goes for TV and movies and everything. This isn't just comics, but we're talking about comics. So the sad reality is that not every comic book needs to be made. Everybody thinks they can make a comic, and it's going to come out and be this big thing. But then you go and you watch what gets produced, and it's like, yeah, but this is just all this is this. It's this. It's this. It's Lord of the Rings. It's Star Wars. It's the same thing we've already seen, just with whatever quote unquote twist you want to put on it. But most of it just isn't remarkable enough to be not to be successful, because there's plenty of campaigns, just using Kickstarter as an example. There's plenty of campaigns that dredge up $1,000 and the folks get their campaign done and they put the book out, and more power to you, because that's fantastic. A success is a success, period. But there's too many people that think they come in with the book, just a completely random book, and think, hey, I'm going to come in and make 50 grand because Tom did it, because Dan Mendoza did it, because whoever did it. And that's just not the case. We did it because we have decades of time behind us, building a brand, building characters, building an infrastructure that people understand and can trust. And even though we've been late on our Kickstarters, we've always delivered. We've had artist problems. We had a printer drop out on us one time, like completely, like, yeah, we're out of business now. Holy crap. So I had to go find a new printer for this book. So we've been late, but we always deliver. Somebody new coming into comics in general, but Kickstarter in specific, nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows what your book is. And you're not going to come out and make 30 grand on your first try, barring being that major exception to the rule. So not every book needs to be made. I mean, there's 270 campaigns on Kickstarter right now. 270 comic book campaigns, not to mention everything else they do. That is the most I have ever seen in my time doing Kickstarters. Usually it floats around 200. So there's a lot of people trying right now. And while most are funding, which is great, most are funding within the realm of like $1,000 or $2,000.
Absolutely. And I was going to sneak a little joke in there and just say, are you trying? So what I'm gathering from everything you just said is that we don't need an adaptation. We never needed an adaptation for Battleship in the film.
Right. Yes.
And but I see a greater picture of what you said. It's not that you're right. I agree with you 100%, because, anybody can write a script. Anybody can sit down and just say, all right, I'm going to bang this out in a night and just get it out there. But you're right. I think it's more than just a matter of having the money to do it.
Oh, sure.
You could blow your money and then not have anything, or you could have a situation like you did with your printer and never recover from that. Or you could get a book that the print run gets completely botched and you never have a chance to do it again. There's so many ways, there's so many hurdles that can get in your way when it comes to making comics. And it's really up to you to push forward with it. But the thing I also want to mention, though, is I think a lot of what you're saying, a lot of what your success is saying is that it's really about the environment you're cultivating.
Yeah.
That's something I want to talk to you about, because you seem to do a really good job of making it about your brand and not about everything else. And, I don't want to get into that realm, because that's the one thing that I think we both can agree on just doesn't need to be brought up. But, just keeping your audience focused on the positive things that you got going on all the steps that you got going on. Tell us a little bit about, what goes on in your mind. How did you manage to just keep yourself focused as we're going into this, strange pandemic and learning to make it, our, quote unquote new normal?
Well, last year, long before everybody is doing this now, I dove in and started doing live sales on Facebook. So I've been doing this for almost 2 years now. All of last year, I kept telling my artist friends, like, dude, you don't have to be chasing around all this money at cons. Like, you can do this at home and turn your camera on, and you can draw, and you can take commissions. You can do all of the things that you do at the con. You can do it from home. And
where were you 2 years ago? Why didn't I talk to you then?
I was telling the world, man.
You know what?
But nobody wanted to hear it. Well, I won't say nobody, because we did have some. I started a group through another group that I was a part of. So there's the Comic Book Shopping Network, which is where I'm part of, and I do my sales and so on. I started a group through them called the Artist Alley Shopping Network, which basically was, let me go find artists that I know and convince them, guys, turn your phones on, talk to your fans, draw for them, take commissions, sell your books, whatever it is, whatever you want to do. We did that last July. And that has grown from having 4 people over the first almost 6 months to having 15 now or so. A year later, all of these people have figured out that, this makes sense. The COVID part of it is what changed it, though. The COVID part forced everybody to figure out how to do it, and because there were already people doing it, that was basically the template for everybody to kind of watch and see. For me, it was always just, dude, guys, I've been asking you for a year, get into this Artist Alley thing. Come on. And finally I got another. And like I said, now we're up to like 15 people, which is great. They do 1 show a week for 2 hours, and they sell all kinds of stuff. They take commissions, they do all of that, and they're all having a great time, and they all have direct contact to the, 1,400 people that are in the group. So vetted people. It's not just a matter of like, let's just get people in here. We vet the people that go in. They number one, they have to answer 3 questions that are just throwaway questions. But I want to make sure you're not a robot. I want to make sure you're not just some group trying to scam on our group, whatever. So it's vetted people that are in there. And because we want an active group, we want these artists to be able to say like, yeah, I'm talking to a lot of people. So yeah, and that is growing your brand. Now your brand is either your brand or your brand is you, and you got to decide what that is. In the artist's case, your brand is you, because if you're going to draw Batman and Wonder Woman and Spider-Man, that's Marvel. But you are your own brand. You are your own artistic brand. So for me, Big Dog Inc. it's never been about me. It's always been about the characters. I've always put the characters and the creative teams first. This is Critter, and she's drawn by Fico Ossio. This is Ursa Minor. She's drawn by Ian Snyder. It's never, hey, I write this and I write this. It's always the characters, the brand, the art, the team first, and then, oh, and by the way, I write it. So if you want me to sign it, I'll be happy to sign it for you, because I'm just the writer.
But just the writer, of course.
Just the writer. Yeah.
But that's what I think is really cool about it, is that you make it you understand that the books would not exist without the artists. You make it about the production team. I think what you've built with the Artist Alley Shopping Network, being a part of the Comic Book Shopping Network, is truly an amazing thing. Honestly, one of the other biggest influences on me personally has been Mog Park.
Sure.
Who's one of the artists you have currently on the Artist Alley Shopping Network.
Yep.
And like just seeing what you guys are doing, it just finally clicked to me. Like ever since March, I was thinking to myself, like, man, I just wish I could go back to the conventions. I wish they would let me get back to work. And I didn't realize until very recently that the only person who was keeping me from working was me.
Right.
So it was just a matter of and I took a lot of time to talk to different creators and learn from you guys, and the knowledge I've been gaining is it's better than 10 college courses. And it finally got me to a point where it's like, okay, I can try and do this. So now here's another question for you. Since I want to say that I'm pursuing not the same path, but a similar path where I'm a writer, publisher, whatever, trying to keep my brand alive in this new world. How long did it take you to bring everything that you're doing, that you were able to do so successfully at conventions, onto the internet? Like, how long did it take you to just finally establish some sense of like regularity in it? And were you hitting up email lists, or were you just mainly connecting with people on Facebook and other forms of social media?
I'm the worst marketer on the planet as far as all of that stuff goes. I have an email list. I almost never use it.
Same here. Same here.
Which is counterintuitive to everything. And it's not that I don't want to use it. I'm just like, dude, there's so many. Number one, I hate email. Email is like the landline of communication in today's era. I mean, literally, we just turned our phones on and we're talking face to face. Why the hell are you emailing me? Stop emailing me. So for me, I've been an adopter of Facebook almost since the beginning. I was on Facebook like on year 2 when it was available to the public. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know why I was there, but I was there. So I've always had a presence here. And then when we started doing comics, that just became my chosen form of how to connect with people. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I don't know why I'm on Twitter, but I'm there.
You hate Twitter as much as I do then. Yeah. I hate how we can't say what we need to say and how it's always crammed. I mean, it's like sometimes you got a point you got to make, and we're writers, so we're expressive, but like
we need more characters, man.
Yeah, exactly. Well, particularly when it comes to promoting something or letting people know that, hey, I'm listening, I'm here. It's like it's almost like it's an environment that's set up to just simply get people to be at each other's throats. Where I have problems with all the social media platforms, so to speak, but Facebook, it's one I understand, and it's where we can easily connect. Like, I can message you and you'll message me back, and you're so good about it too. Like, literally, folks, if you reach out to Tom and you just message him and say, hey, Tom, what's up? He's going to get back to you, and it's going to be in record time. Now, here's a question for you. Between all that social mediaing, I'm realizing, as I'm moving into this online sales, territory, that you're doing a lot of wheeling and dealing during the day while you're working, while you're doing other things. Like, you have to talk to customers, you have to do all these different things. Sure. But at the same time, you also gotta write. So how do you break up your schedule? Is it just kind of like, I got this time blocked off for this, or does every day kind of change for you?
Yeah, it's all changing. I mean, the fact that we only do basically quarterly Kickstarters, I don't have to be writing on a daily basis because I only really have 1 or 2 scripts that I have to focus on. So, it used to be we were putting out 3 or 4, sometimes 5 books a month, and you had to be like, rolling. But now it's easier, but I'm also having some of this infrastructure taken away from me too. So our fulfillment for our Kickstarters is going somewhere else, so I don't have to actually do it, because I've been doing it myself for the last 4 years. I've been shipping all of the packages out myself, and that's just, if I'm shipping and I'm not writing, if I'm writing, then I'm not editing, if I'm editing, then I'm not making the Kickstarter, if I'm not making the Kickstarter, then I'm not shipping, and the cycle goes around. So you really have to start to build a team of some sort to make it all work once you reach a level where there's a lot going on. For me, it's like I'm always creating, but sometimes I'm creating things that are like way down the line, like this Lingerie Wars joke that I made, that now all of a sudden everybody wants this book to be real. But I always have projects in the back of my head that are like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this. And so all that stuff kind of percolates, and I take notes, and eventually it's like, okay, I think I have enough to kind of tackle whatever this thing is going to be. But because, again, I only have to do scripts on a quarterly basis, I can move back and forth between all of these things, versus like, hey, I need 4 scripts written this month, which is, it's fun, but it's also, you have to really be focused on what you're doing.
Yes, you do. And you know what you're telling me right now, it takes it. I feel like a weight coming off my shoulders, because all throughout this year, I'm interviewing all these creators, and all of them are talking about all the things that they got going on. Very rarely do they mention that it doesn't happen overnight. So it's like, it's really relieving to hear that it's like, yeah, you're running a business. So yes, you are creative. Yes, you do put in time into it. In fact, I would go as far as to say that being creative in business is where the fun is actually at.
Sure.
In a lot of ways. Like, yes, it's fun writing the scripts and everything, but it's really hard kind of being alone with your ideas. And really, it goes back to what you said. Does every comic need to exist? No, it doesn't. So when you're thinking about what's the next great endeavor I have, what am I going to put my own time, money, and self-worth into? What's really going to give me the most satisfaction, and what's going to give my audience the most satisfaction? That takes time to come up with. It doesn't just come out your butt. Like, you got to really think about it. You got to hone it. You got to keep working it. And that's nerve-wracking. And so being able to balance it up with, okay, I'm going to promote today because I already got something that exists. People want it. I need to just convince them that that's the case, because otherwise they don't see me. Otherwise, I just got to keep going out there, keep bombarding, keep pushing. And that's creativity, because how do you get their attention? How do you keep them engaged?
Well, and that's one of the things that I started doing this year was we created a Patreon page for Big Dog Inc. It's not a Tom page. Again, nothing's Tom. It's all Big Dog Inc. And there's 31 people there right now. And they all basically get to look inside the brain, because whatever I do, whatever I'm doing at a given time, I just post it to Patreon. I'm like, okay, so I'm working on this thing and I have this sketch from an artist, and they're getting to see, how the soup is made, from the beginning to the end. And, so that's been really fun to kind of let people see, the beginnings of things, how things change. Like, if sometimes we'll have a design, but then when we get to the actual book, it's like that design is reworked, and it's like, oh, so we started here and we went to here and we went to here and now it's this, and they get to watch all that happen. So that's really fun, and they've had a great time seeing all that stuff. They also get to vote on some of the things that we do. Like, if I need character names or whatever, we let them vote and decide, essentially Big Dog Geek history. So they know that they get to have a little piece of some of the easy stays in Big Dog Inc. creation. So Patreon's been really fun and really great. I posted something today. I don't remember what the hell it was. Oh yeah. We have a special 10-year anniversary finale coming up towards the end of October. So they just got the first view, the days, the arts, like they know everything that's coming already, which means that, those that catch us when it actually happens are a little bit behind the times, but that's the advantage for the patrons. I mean, they're paying me, anywhere between $5 to $10 a month to be part of this Patreon, and they get bonuses. They actually got a free comic book in July. They got a completely free variant cover for Critter as part of the 10-year anniversary. It was one of my experiments. It was Bikini Day. Like, there's literally a Bikini Day, July 5th. So I made a variant cover for Critter with her swimming in the ocean in a bikini, and we made that a cover. We put it on Kickstarter. We made it a 24-hour Kickstarter. It was one of those make 100 things where you only make 100 copies of it. I made it a 24-hour Kickstarter because I figured we'd be able to go through all 100 in 24 hours. We sold them out in the time it took me to walk around the lake, 1 hour. So, again, just a little experiment. You throw it out there, something good happens, you take that information and you move on to what you're going to do next.
Absolutely.
And that's it. That's it.
Absolutely incredible. So would you say that the Kickstarter is primarily where you're seeing sales? Is it from hitting that launch button every?
Yeah, it's Kickstarter, and it's my live show. I mean, we do a live show every Wednesday night. Mm-hmm. So, but even that, it wasn't even a situation where I did my first one and it was slow and then I had to build it. Like,
yeah,
there were people immediately on it. Like, I was shocked.
Yeah, I was too. And you know what, Tom? I messed up so bad, I can't even begin to tell you. I had this whole elaborate thing set up and everything, and as soon as I hit that live button, there's this weird echo that comes because I have like an intro to my show and everything, and the wrong camera. I have two cameras, my phone and my laptop, and my phone one was on, and I totally messed up. I fell flat on my face, and that happens. So I just, and then the next one, I ended the broadcast 10 minutes early. So like yesterday was like the first episode I did without like completely screwing up, which is like good. And I what I'm taking from you is that I just need to keep hitting that button and
Sure.
just keep going out there and keep engaging people, keep talking to them, and making good connections,
Yeah.
not just saying stuff that's my opinions about things like politics, which honestly people, they don't come to us for politics. If they want to know,
Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares what your opinion is. So
Yeah.
don't worry about it. Just sell your comics.
shut up and give me my comics. That's it. And it's not just that. It's not shut up and give me comics. It's shut up, don't shut up, give me comics, but give me more. What else do you have? Sure. And you've done such a great job of making it about your artists and talking to them and being like, all right, this is what you guys can be doing right now to make money. This is how you guys can get ahead. But your actions are also speaking to people like me who are in a different boat than you, but at the same time, we look at you as like sort of like the light, the flashlight in the dark tunnel, to help us. Well, it's true.
No.
I hate this. I wouldn't say it if it weren't true. I didn't mean that I hate to say it.
I am just a guy doing what I do. There's the old saying, like, write what you would want to read. That's where all my stuff came from. I don't write things because I think it has social value specifically. I don't write things because it has some agenda in it. I write something because I think it's fun and I think it's cool, and I write it and I put it out, and that's it. And then from there, the fans obviously get to decide, and this goes for all comics. The fans decide what lives and dies, because they'll either buy it and enjoy it, or they'll say like, nah, it's not my thing. And even within all of my books, I mean, there's a hierarchy of like, people love this, people love this, people love this, but it's a variation of love. Like, there are things that sell at the bottom, and there's things that sell at the top. And I have to be aware of all of the 11 titles that I have. I have to be aware of where all of them fit into the structure. Because if I'm going to be like, well, I really like this one that's at the bottom, whatever it is, and I want to push it, I have to be aware that takes a completely different set of skills than taking the thing that sells the best and putting it out there, because that they're all just going to come flocking. You have to really focus and be like, okay, I'm going to take this number 11 title, whatever it is, and I'm going to work on it until it's a number 5 title. That's a completely different set of needs than just putting things out and letting it happen. So, you got to be aware of your own product line. And it's no different than Marvel or DC. Batman will always sell more than,
any other DC title.
Anything. Yeah. So, you have to understand where all that stuff sits, accept it. Now, again, you can attempt to change it. But that takes a lot of extra work, and there's no guarantee that you will change it.
Yeah, I agree. And speaking of Marvel and DC, what I think is so amazing is, so you came at this starting out on the retail side, owning your own business, and then basically became a self-publisher. Now, if I'm understanding correctly, you never worked for the big two.
No.
So I think it's even more amazing the fact that you never worked for the big two.
I've never worked for anyone other than myself.
Yeah,
I worked with Aspen, but they basically let me do what I did.
A partnership.
They had no editorial on me. They were just like, do what you want, man. I mean, we know what you do, so just get the stuff out and we'll be fine. So they were fine with that. But no, I've never worked for anybody in any capacity. So when I started, I pitched my book. I pitched Penny for Your Soul to 6 different publishers. None of them even sent me a no, except for one. One emailed me back. They were like, dude, we're kind of doing something similar. We don't want to overlap. I was like, I get it. That's totally fine. Yeah, sure. Thank you for just acknowledging that I exist. All the other 5 didn't even acknowledge me. And so that's when I was like, F this. I'll just do it myself. And, as they say, the best revenge is success. So just shut up, do your stuff, and walk by their booth with the big pile of your books being like, yeah, you could have had this. But,
well,
get it now.
It's interesting. I've been coming across these videos that Ross Ritchie has been putting up from Boom about unsolicited, submissions and, what kinds of things that creators actually have to contend with. Sure. Last week he did this video of Boom has these select slots. And if you're not these top writers who are coming from Marvel and DC, well, we're probably not going to publish your stuff because you're competing against all of them. But you see, that's the thing. You don't need to be a part of that. You could do it yourself. And, just seeing, we both, I think, have had success proving that. I mean, for the last 10 years, I've been working on one comic series, and it's my full-time job. But you make it your full-time job because you're committed to making it better than what it can be, and engaging your audience and finding a way to constantly grow and cultivate what you're doing. And it never occurred to me to do it digitally, because I just, like you, I always saw, like, if I sent out an email to like 5,000 people, I'd get like maybe one transaction off of it, because people hate emails. I'm sorry, everybody hates emails. And I know some guys can utilize it to much better effect, like Brian Polito. I mean, you know, what he's doing with Coffin Comics, that's, you know, just incredible. I mean, you know, I look at that as huge inspiration as well.
Sure.
But I think what I really like about what you're doing is it's so much more grassroots. It's so much more what speaks to me, because to me, it's about the fans. It's about being able to interact with them. It's knowing that someone can interact with me, and I can know you. I can know the person who gave me money for my book, and we can stay in touch, and I can find other ways to keep your business by giving you something more, by giving you more of what I have to offer, what me and my creative team have to offer. And I think that there's something to be said about that, you know.
Sure. And slow growth is the key. Honestly, I don't want to see 1,000 backers right now, because that blows up my infrastructure for everything. That's so many more books. That's so many more packages that have to go out. I'm not prepared for it. We started at like 200. We got to 400, 300. We got to 400. We got to 5. You know, I love these little incremental bumps. And then Princess vs. Zombies had 640 backers. That was the most we've ever had. So I like watching it grow a little at a time, because that means I can grow with it and make sure that the infrastructure behind everything is ready for it. You know, if all of a sudden I go from 640 to 1,040, I mean, that's great. I'm not telling people I don't want you to come back my stuff, but it will throw a little bit of a monkey wrench into some of the infrastructure that we would have to reset really, really fast to make sure that we have it all done in a timely fashion. So I would prefer the next one to be about 700. We'll get to 800, and that way every piece of the business is growing slowly versus, oh my God, what do we do now?
Once you get up to that point, you'll know what's up. You're there. And now you're there to stay, because it's not something that just shot up. It's kind of like losing weight, you know, like from last year, I decided to drop weight, and I dropped about 65 pounds, and it's been a year, and I've kept it off. But the thing is it's always about the gradual steps you take to get to your goal. Because once you're there, now you know how to maintain, because it wasn't just like a sudden thing. And I'm glad you're saying that, because now I'm planning a Kickstarter, and I'm thinking about whether I should do it now or prolong it to next year and just give myself a little bit more prep time, because I am planning to do 3 campaigns next year. And, you know, given that I'm in this process of planning, do I want to, like, you know, I know that whatever campaign I put out there probably isn't going to get 1,000 backers. I've kind of accepted that, but I know from my last campaign that I did this, I had like 100 plus backers. I think I had 162 backers. So why don't I shoot for 200 backers with the
exactly
next, you know,
exactly.
Just keep it something like that. And, you know, once you get those backers, keep them around. And that's something that I think I need to work on with Kickstarter, because I don't reach out to my backers enough. I mean, I'm trying to, but between all these platforms, it's so, you know, it's confusing. You know, it's like this guy follows me on Twitter, that guy follows me on Instagram. You know, these ladies here, they follow me on Facebook. You know,
you've got to really inform your followers where you are most of the time. And most of the people that follow me know that I'm on Facebook. And if they have a problem, they can literally send me a message, and within minutes, I will probably see it and be like, okay, let me look at what happened and see if I can figure it out. All of this stuff where you're sending messages and comments on the campaigns and stuff, that gets like hyper confusing sometimes. So if you can, people, if you are at all possible, find the creators on social media, because it's a far more direct method of, hey, I was missing a book, or something's damaged, or, you know, you have a tracking number, or whatever it happens to be. It's just so much faster than sending messages into the cloud of Kickstarter and hoping that stuff falls into an email, because that's all that happens. It goes into an email, and the email says, hey, somebody asked you something on your Kickstarter. But again, email, I mean, you know how many emails I get in a day?
Exactly.
So it's very easy for me to like
Yeah.
accidentally click one off and be like, well, I mean, I never saw it. So always try and be able to connect with your creators on social media, even if it's just for emergency purposes of, hey, I didn't get a book or whatever, because then you've got that direct contact. So.
And I agree with you on that, because, you know, the thing about it is when you get people, like when I get emails, like with my last campaign, there was a guy I sent out all my packages, and then you always get people who don't respond right away. And then there's always something that slips between the cracks. It happens with every campaign, folks. So if you're going to launch one, just be ready for that. And
yeah, I get messages from people who are like, dude, I never got my stuff. And I'm like, okay, let me go look. And then it turns out that, 6 months ago, they never filled out their survey. Like,
well, it turned out in this case that this guy did. It was my fault. I had dropped the ball, because what happened was that the item that he picked up never actually went into production, and it just slipped my mind, and I had to come back to him and make it up to him by giving him something else to make up for it. So I came back to him and I said something, but he actually posted publicly like, this guy's a scam artist, he doesn't deliver, and blah blah blah. And it took me maybe a couple hours before I actually saw that message and was able to come back. Whereas if he would have come to me directly, even if he would have just sent me a message on Kickstarter, I could have seen it and I would have taken care of it, because that's what we do. We can't afford. We're not in the business of being able to screw with our fan base, because if we do, no one's going to buy our stuff. We're not going to be in business.
Yeah, mistakes are going to happen. I mean, you're talking about sending out, in our case, 500-600 packages. Mistakes are going to happen, but we'll fix it. Just, give us the opportunity to fix it, and it'll be done. It's not a problem. I understand the frustration. I mean, I buy stuff online. There's mistakes that happen when I get stuff. I get it. And I'm like, oh, man, I should have had that book, and I didn't get it. So I message the dudes. They're like, oh, sorry. And then they send the book out. I mean, like, it's fine. It's not, we live in a world of instant gratification. So Kickstarters are not ideal, because you're basically pre-ordering a book that's going to come out like a couple of months later. So it's not ideal. It's not like walking into a comic book store and just buying a book. But give these creators an opportunity to solve the problem, because a lot of these guys are like me. It's just, I'm doing this by myself. Everything that we do by myself. So I have a lot going on, and sometimes things slip through the cracks. So just send me a message and we'll fix it. Easy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another thing too, Tom, that I think is really interesting is when you're working on these fulfillments. So you have another organization that's helping you with this. So
we do now, yeah.
Oh, okay. So how does is that? Have you heard of? Are they the same kind of organization that can do like that back end checkout thing? Because like that's something I've been looking into. Do you use that as a way to like allow people to tack stuff on?
BackerKit. Yeah, BackerKit's just opens your campaign to be a store, so they can buy more stuff. That's all BackerKit is. And then obviously when it's done, it generates a sheet that has all the addresses and everything that you can then send your stuff out to. So we use BackerKit all the time. And then all of that information and all the books and all the stretch goals all get sent, instead of coming to me, they all get sent out to Arizona, and the guys out there package it all up, send it out, and then we're done.
That's awesome.
So we did it with Oz. Oz was the first real tryout. It took a little over 2 weeks to get about 400 packages out. So that wasn't too bad. And if I had been doing it myself, again, even if I got it done in that same amount of time, that's all time that I wouldn't be writing. I wouldn't be doing anything else. So you have to really understand, what's your time worth, like your personal time. Like, is your time better spent packaging books or writing the next book and marketing for the next book? So that's where I was like, you know what, this is going to cost me money, but the reality is it's going to go faster. It's probably going to be done more efficiently. And it means that I can spend that time doing other things. And that's why I was like, yeah, let's run this tryout and see how it goes. And it worked basically 99% perfectly with a couple of little bumps, but those were taken care of, and we're done. And so now when they do Princess versus Zombies in a few weeks, they know sort of my system because they've done this before. They know books get this and this and this. They know how to package stretch goals, all that kind of thing. So it should only get better as they do it more.
That's fantastic. Yeah, no, it's really, I get another thing I take from this conversation is that you are also a man who knows that I can do a lot, but I can't do everything, and that's okay because my company is not just me; it's my people. It's the people that I choose to work with. And
I mean, we used to have actually employees for BDI that would come in and do mail every day or every couple of days or whatever. But when we went to Aspen, all of that infrastructure kind of came apart. The divorce, it all kind of came apart because I was moving from place to place, and it all just kind of collapsed. But at that time, like I said, Aspen was doing it all. So I kind of was like, okay. We lost all of that, but Aspen's taking care of it. And so now that we're away with Aspen, I have to rebuild it all. And, that's taken a lot of time. So I had actually had plans to be hiring people this year to kind of really build the infrastructure where I am. But then COVID happened and, can't do that.
Can't do that. Yeah. I think that changes everything. Well, I will say this though, I have no doubt that you're going to figure out a way to make it all work, and I'm watching in a very I want to say admirable way because I look at what you're doing and I'm like, okay, this is the future of what my business can be, and I want to thank you for that because it was really hard for me to kind of like shut that side of myself off, the business side, the side that like gets to go out and promote. And you've been a huge inspiration in helping me awaken that. So being able to sit down with you today and seeing how much of the same values we have and when it comes to putting out content really meant a lot to me, and thanks again. I appreciate it, Tom. You're the man.
Of course. I mean, this is a lot of this information has been offered up in tons of places. I mean, I've been doing these videos and all kinds of stuff for years, but it never hurts to get it out somewhere else because again, and not as a promotion for me per se, but just as a like, hey, look, comics aren't dying. Okay. The distribution methods are archaic and being reimagined. But comics themselves as a medium are not dying. There are more comics online as webcomics right now than you could possibly even imagine. There are publishers popping up all the time. There are small press dudes like me and like yourself that are just like, well, let me just make a comic book. Now, that's not necessarily going to make it to retail stores, but who cares? I mean, if you're doing something, number one, if you're doing something and you're enjoying it, just keep doing it. Number two, if you're doing something and you're enjoying it and it's paying for itself, keep doing it. If you're doing it, it's paying for yourself and it's actually putting money in your pocket, keep doing it. It doesn't matter what the system is. The system doesn't matter. It's whatever your system is that works for you. And that's it. Find what works for you and keep at it. And you will have, again, that grassroots growth. It might not be 1,000 backers in a year, but I've been doing Kickstarter for 4 years and our highest was 640. I'm still happy. I'm seeing growth. The people like the books and they're excited for when we start to talk about what's coming next. And that's it. That's comic books in a nutshell.
I got goosebumps. And it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen very often. But I got goosebumps because what you're saying rings true. And that's what I keep telling myself because, I haven't seen a huge, I'm just going to be honest. I didn't see a huge amount of sales in my first weekend of doing this, but I saw more than zero. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's more than zero. Then next week it'll be a little bit more. And maybe it'll be less than that. But you know what? I need to start somewhere. I need to grow, and if it does fall down to zero, then why did it fall down to zero? Look at that. Never give up and keep pushing and, learn how to make it successful. Like, thank you so much, Tom. I really appreciate it. We're coming to the end of our episode right now.
Sure.
But for folks who are following me, who are absolutely going to want to follow you, tell us where we can reach you, where we can best support you, where we can throw money in your direction.
Yeah, so like we talked about, I'm on Facebook. I mean, that's the core of my marketing and my social presence. So just look me up, Tom Hutchinson, or we have a Big Dog Inc. Fan page, Inc. with a K. There's like almost 30,000 people hanging around there. So go join the Big Dog Inc. page. I'm on Twitter and Instagram. It's BDI Comics. So like Big Dog Inc., BDI Comics. And you can connect with us there. Right now, we have Comic Unity, which is a shared Kickstarter event. It's myself, Wendy Steen Shaner, and CB Zane. We are kickstarting a 64-page anthology book, 3 characters, 3 full-size stories. So most anthologies are like, 8-page stories. These are full 20-page stories, brand new characters. One is a spinoff from Critter. Her name is Catnip. She's like a goth noir style superhero. The Kickstarter is running for about another 9 days, I think. We just launched a cosplay contest today. So if you are interested in the cosplay contest, you can become a backer. You can vote for all of these women. There are 10 entries in this campaign, which is just like mind-blowing. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, there's 10. There's 10 entries into this cosplay contest for all these characters. You can vote who's going to win, but you have to be a backer to do it. There are variant covers, Steph Wilson, Keith Garvey, CB Zane, Hedwin Zaldivar. I mean, there's a lot of great art, but it doesn't matter what you buy. You will always get the full 64-page book. So choose the cover that you like, grab it, and support independent creator-owned books. And then Ursa Minor, which is my horror book, we're actually going to be launching that October 24th on Kickstarter. So that'll be the first time we've had Ursa Minor back on the market in about 2 years.
Excellent. Tom, thank you so much. Do me a favor. I don't know how busy you are. If you got it like an extra minute, let me just close out. I'd love to talk to you backstage.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. All right.
Thanks, guys.
Hang tight. Thank you again for coming on today. We really appreciate it. Excellent. Well, there you have it, folks. A great guest, full of knowledge, full of insight, and full of inspiration for me. So I will be back tomorrow. I got a great guest in line, and I'm looking forward to talking to him. I'm looking forward to seeing you guys. And until that time comes, onward to victory.